Hey, what's up guys, it's Oakley, and we're going to be discussing more about the Lizardmen. Previous video I did covered all the new units in the roster. In this video we're going to be discussing the new battle mechanics, features and whatnot for the Lizardmen. So let's get into it. The main things that they did announce for the Lizardmen is that there are two kind of big governing things for the Lizardmen. One is going to be that there's this baseline that applies for almost all the units, and it's going to be called Cold Blood Healing. And another mechanic is going to be the Rampage mechanic. So these are going to work together. So I think it's perhaps best to start with the Rampage mechanic. The Rampage mechanic is something where essentially if your unit gets below a certain point in health, maybe below 50 or below 30 or something along those lines, if you drop too low in health for your units, then all of a sudden you lose control of your unit and it'll start chasing after the nearest enemy. And essentially this scales. So generally what they said, the larger the unit, the more ferocious the unit, the more likely it is to rampage. So that's an interesting way to kind of play risk-reward with large, big units. The big T-Rexes, man, they're deadly, but at the same time, if someone can focus fire on it, you'll lose control and they could bait it away from your army and kill it off that way. So I like that risk-reward. So essentially, it'll apply to a lot of the infantry as well, but generally the more feral the creature, and we talked about feral creatures in the last video, the more feral creature, the more fresh out of the jungle it is, the more likely it is to rampage. There'll be certain units that will be high tier but won't be subject to this rampage effect, or that will have it negated. So for instance, generally a Carnosaur, a big T-Rex, is going to want to rampage, but if you look at Krokgar, he's a very skilled general. He's got very good control of his mount. And so his Carnosaur isn't really going to be subject to the same rampaging rules. I believe it might, but it's much less likely. Same thing goes for the Stegodons and Bastiodons. The feral versions can perhaps run away and be subject to this rampage ability, but on the flip side, if you give them an upgrade and if they are mounted by skinks, the skink will exert control over the creature and it will be far less likely, if not impossible, for it to run rampant. So that's kind of a cool mechanic, an incentive to upgrade your units, not only to make them stronger with equipment, but to get them under control. So I really like the mechanic, really gives you a dynamic, and it's a different thing to fixate on, the health of your units, and really keeping them topped off and fresh. So that brings us to the second mechanic, which is cold-blooded healing. Essentially what CA said is that cold-blooded healing means that once your units are out of combat, they're going to slowly start to regen health. So you take those two together, the fact that if you drop below 50% health, you'll start to lose control of your units. And if you're away from combat, then you're going to start healing. So essentially what CA is trying to get you to do is cycle your units in and out, which is very cool. I'm excited to see that. And so presumably what you'd see in a big battle would be, you charge at the enemy front lines, use your big feral monsters and other big tanky units to get up close, soak up fire, you get into combat, and as you watch the health of all your units slowly start to drop, you're going to have to incrementally pull some out of combat, sit them perhaps at the back lines, wait for them to regen, not only leadership but more importantly health, and then recommit them to the fight. So that's going to be an interesting kind of dynamic where you have to keep tabs on everyone, and that is very cool. It has a lot of also opportunities for the enemy. What do you choose to focus fire? Are you going to focus fire early in the battle an enemy Carnosaur? Charge out with some skirmishers, cause the Carnosaur to drop to low health, make him chase after you, draw him into your army, and eviscerate him piecemeal, by himself before the rest of the army. So that's really cool. I love this change in mechanic. It's pretty bold of CA to implement something as dynamic as this, and I think it's really going to make the Lizardmen stand out. So yeah, you have the cold-blooded healing, which will kind of focus or force you to try and cycle out your units, but then, as was mentioned previously in the video where I talk about the units, there's also going to be various either lords or pieces of equipment that allow you to also kind of regen your units. So the first one would be some of your casters will have abilities to regen some of your units. So you could top off, say, have a caster kind of follow around your main line. You see your Carnosaur starting to drop to low health. He may start to rampage. Boom, you pop something to get him back up to high health. Another one is the Stegodon with the Bastiodon with the Revivification Crystal, and essentially what that is it's the Lizardmen version of the Mortis engine. It moves around and it provides an area of effect healing, and so that is going to be a good way to, again, like I said, keep your units topped off, keep them above that whatever threshold before they rampage, and just like the Mortis engine, it might be something that the enemy wants to target down and bring to very low health, so that all of a sudden you lose control of your army. The enemy then can perhaps fall back and draw you out of position and draw you into traps. So I really like this new mechanic. It's going to open up a lot of possibilities, and what it signals to me is if they're going this in depth to make the Lizardmen act in a very unique way, has me very excited for what are the mechanics that they're going to do for the High Elves, the Dark Elves, and Skaven. I hope that all of those are treated similarly with a very unique mechanic to flesh them out. And this is really good. I mean, in the first game, the factions were asymmetric, but it kind of was more in terms of baseline unit stats, but it wasn't so much about like special mechanics like this. So I'm very eager about the direction they're going. This makes it stand out that much more. So yeah, this is very cool. That's kind of it for the mechanics here. I think we touched on most of it, and yeah, I think it's very promising, very exciting. So that's it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed, and definitely stay tuned for more, and check out that previous video I did on the units themselves, or go ahead and check out the video that CA put up where they discuss it. So that's it. Hope you guys enjoyed. See you in the next one. Peace out.